And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, welcome to the aviation section of the Alaska weather broadcast. For September 3rd, 2023, I'm Eric Holloway with the National Weather Service. We have a couple options for you. 1-800 number gets you through a phone menu system out on the World Wide Web at weather.gov/Alaska. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us. Taking a look at the satellite image real quick here, you can see a system pulling through the midsection of the state, and this pattern will again be another system coming in. You can see it developing out there in eastern Russia, but two twin systems over the next couple of days. But currently we're going to be dealing with the system pulling through the midsection of the state, driving a lot of clouds through the midsection. Also a secondary low developing in the Gulf of Alaska. You can see it there developing right there in the Gulf of Alaska with some cloud cover there. But looking at the flying weather for Monday morning, you can see some IFR conditions through the interior and up through the Brooks Range and out through portions of the Arctic coast and Arctic Ocean. Otherwise, IFR conditions out there in the Bering Sea and Aleutians. Otherwise, back through the Panhandle, some limited IFR conditions along the coastal mountains. Otherwise, marginal conditions across the rest of the Panhandle and into the Gulf of Alaska. Then for flying weather Monday afternoon, looking at, again, continuing marginal conditions in the Panhandle, marginal conditions out through the eastern mainland, and marginal conditions with an isolated area of IFR condition in the Brooks Range, and that extends out through the North Slope and into the Arctic coast. Otherwise, with the next system, again, like we mentioned, coming into view there Monday afternoon, bringing some IFR conditions throughout much of the Bering Sea and Aleutians. And that system pulls through into the west coast by Tuesday morning. IFR conditions throughout the region, down through, again, much of the west coast, Norton Sound, Bristol Bay region, and out through the Alaska Peninsula and into the Aleutians. Otherwise, some decent flying weather conditions are likely through much of the mainland and through that midsection there and down through the Prince William Sound, south central area. Otherwise, marginal conditions continues over there in the Panhandle. And then lastly, for Tuesday afternoon, marginal conditions again with that system pushing to the west, bringing a lot of marginal conditions through the west portions of the mainland down through the Alaska Peninsula, and IFR conditions continuing in the Aleutians and portions of the northern Gulf. Otherwise, some decent flying weather out through the eastern interior, and looks like the Brooks Range and North Slope will get a part of that as well, and clearing conditions out there in the Panhandle. For past conditions, I know this is going to sound like a broken record, but looks like a lot of these passes are going to be IFR improving to marginal throughout the day on Monday. Starting with Anatuvik, IFR to marginal, same for Adigan. Again, down there in Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR improving to marginal. Merrill might get a little bit better later in the day than Lake Clark. And then rainy, IFR to marginal as well. Out there in windy, the same kind of thing. Same with Isabel. Mentasta went for a little bit better flying conditions there with marginal conditions. And then Tanita looking for IFR improving to marginal. And then Portage, same kind of scenario there. And then for Chilkoot and White, IFR conditions expected throughout the day on Monday. For freezing levels Monday morning, looking at a complex pattern, 14,000 extending up to 2,000 feet there, again with that system coming into view along the west coast there. Otherwise, surface to 10,000 feet elevated freezing level out there in the eastern interior down through the Panhandle, with elevations of the southern Panhandle getting up to 8,000 feet. But areas of surface freezing level poking in along the Chukchi Sea and over in the YK Delta, or YK Yukon Territory, I should say. And then ice conditions on Monday above 10,000 feet, they're probably associated with that system. Again, you can expect some isolated moderate to considerable moderate across much of that area and down through the south central region into the northern Gulf. And then for the jet stream, northerly flow across much of the mainland, 50 to 75 knots there, 65 knots in south central again in a northerly flow, anchored by that low pressure in the northern Gulf there, just off the coast of the Panhandle. And then otherwise some westerly winds coming through most of the Aleutians and into the Bering Sea. And then 9,000 foot winds on Monday. Again, weaker northerly flow there at 9,000 feet across much of the mainland. Otherwise, with that big low beginning to show up there in eastern Russia, driving some westerly winds through the Bering Sea and westerly winds down through the Aleutians, 45 to 40 knots there. And again, another low anchored in the Gulf of Alaska. And then down to 3,000 feet winds on Monday again with that low in the extreme eastern Russia, driving westerly flow across the Bering Sea and across the Aleutians. Otherwise, generally light and variable across much of the mainland. And again, another low analyzed there, vertically stacked low there in the Gulf of Alaska, driving some counterclockwise flow around that system. And then for turbulence on Monday, surface to 4,000 feet, some of those isolated areas, anywhere from isolated moderate to considerable moderate in some of those areas, surface to 4,000 feet, especially around the Bristol Bay region and into the Kodiak area. And then surface to 3,000 feet out there in the western and central Aleutians.